got that. Big dog status, now I'm a big dog, bet. I pull up on the block in a big Corvette, yeah. Ride around the city with a stick all black. Try with a stove, but we ain't with all that, yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Paid $1 million and I can't go back. Got a lot of jewelry on me, man, you can't hold that. So ask him better, tell him that I ain't so crack. Know your money long when your people can't fold that. I'm ballin', yeah. My mama told me that did my calling. I keep that stick on, you know, brawling. Open out the doors and let them all in here. Yeah, they all in here. Big dog, they come out the game, big dog. Heavy paddock, come and break my wrist off.
Hello and welcome to Fan Zone today. We're going to be doing nations rapid. We have an Irishman, an Englishman, a Scottishman and a Welshman walk into a bar. Well, not really, because the lockdown's still going on, but sure, how bad. And we're just going to sum up the Six Nations today, how Ireland finished on a high against what was a terrible English side, I'm only joking, and how Scotland went last wins to win the Grand Slam against France. So how are you getting on, fellas? Good to see you.
Very well, Jeff. How are you?
It is well.
Not so bad. So bad. It could be worse, you know. Could have finished on a low, but you know, I think most of us are happy. Most of us. But that's probably enough for the tease. And I suppose we should probably kick off with you know, Wales. End of the day, champions. Grant, you must be very, very pleased.
Yeah, pretty happy, man, after what was a very upsetting performance, or upsetting result, I should say, against France with the Grand Slam slipping. But yeah, pretty pleased with the outcome. Obviously, after the autumn and the end of the last Six Nations, yeah, pretty good pickup. And then just pretty pleased with how individuals came through as well. I thought players like Lewis Rees-Zammit came out really well on top of it. And then other players that haven't been talked about that much, really. Ken Owens, for me, he's one of the players of the championship for me. When I think about the Welsh performances, I thought he was part of the glue that kept them together. Outstanding in defence, solid in the line out, scrummaged really well, just did all the really hard graft. And then particularly against some of the bigger runners, I thought his defensive play against Vunipola when he tried to carry against England, and then against Ireland with a number of very strong carries. Yeah, I thought he was outstanding. So yeah, pretty pleased overall. I think the style of play really evolved as he went through the championship. Really pleased to see the ball being moved a little bit more, but not quite as lacking in direction as it was in the autumn. So get into the edges, playing off nicely, but then using the kicking game well in between as well. So yeah, pretty pleased overall, Jeff.
That's nice because Wales were almost written off before the championship, but a team that weren't written off was Ireland. Ireland was very much one of the favourites going in. Jeff, how do you sum up Ireland's championship? You know, there's some big scalps, there's some difficult matches, maybe some results or decisions didn't go your way. What's your thoughts? Well, Farrell, has he kind of signed his contract for next week? Wiley, has he done himself the world of good?
Oh, contract talks, I don't know. I'm not, not privy to that kind of talk. But I mean, when you think about finishing on, when you finish on a high, people seem to forget the lows. I think that's kind of part of sport. And against England, a couple of good tries, real creative rugby. I think it's important to, and then not in a mocking way, but just to kind of outline that England weren't as good as they could have been on the day, but at the same time, when you look at the final table, there was 5 points between first and fourth. To have that, I suppose, that tightness when we lost to Wales and we lost to France, it was a lot of doom and gloom. But you look at the final table, 5 points between four teams. I can't remember such an open championship in a long time. And when you see that final table, then no one got a slam, which in a weird way, and Grant, you'll probably crucify me for this, I think is quite nice that nobody got a slam. Like, slams are that rare, and it's been such a competitive competition or such a competitive tournament that I don't know if anyone kind of deserved a slam, if that's fair enough. I know everybody beat everybody, but it was just so tight. And when after the France game, after the Wales game, especially some of the media in Ireland had a field day. But I mean, to finish, for four teams to finish within 5 points on the last table, I mean, that just says an awful lot about the championship. And you can be doom and gloom, and you can say, oh, we were terrible and they were poor and etc. etc. But like at the end of the day, it was one of the best championships I can remember in a long time. Would I have preferred if Ireland came first? Absolutely, obviously. And I know Scotland came in and just took it away at the end, and winner takes all. But I thought it was a fantastic championship. Places you could do better in, but I mean, that's sport, isn't it? That's always going to happen. But overall, quite pleased, I think. Is it okay to say that you're happy to finish third? Probably not, but quite pleased overall with, I suppose, the finish.
That's why the Six Nations is arguably the best rugby tournament out there, aside from the World Cup. Guys, you'll need to forgive me because my scroll button isn't actually working on my computer at the moment. I was trying to scroll down the table to see where England finished, and I couldn't see where it was. John, well, you need to fill me in on what has happened to England this season and let me know, what do they need to do moving on World Cup year next year? Or 2 years, rather. I see John's just completely silent because he is just beside himself with absolute angst and anxiety. They cannot answer the questions being posed. Can you hear us, John?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah, go for it, mate. Don't worry.
Technical difficulties. I think as all England fans, it's been a quite lackluster Six Nations. For me, I think, as Eddie Jones says, post Lions tour, we're going to expect some big changes. I think that there's been a lot of complaints about how we play and the style we play, and I would probably say I agree, because we have creative players, and just how England have been, and the whole how regimented we are in our structure. It just means if Plan A don't work, we can take, for example, the Wales game, the Ireland game, and the Scotland game, when we pride ourselves on our kick chase, on our defence, and when we've been so regimented in that, and we haven't been able to evolve our game, okay, in terms of this ain't working, how can we try and evolve and try something else? It's been frustrating, and I think we need to start picking more form players. I know Eddie has his favourites and he likes a core squad, and he's a big fan of average caps determine how well a team does going forward. But for me, we need to start looking at our form players in the Prem. Like, how many times have we mentioned the likes of, we've got Ollie Lawrence on the screen, we've got Sam Simmons, who can't get a sniff in, but across the last 2 seasons, you're talking about someone who's European Player of the Year or thereabouts. We've got Marcus Smith at Harlequins. Look how well Harlequins are playing under him. So for me, going forward, I just want an England team that's exciting. I think for majority of fans, if England played a more entertaining game, but we weren't getting the results per se, we lost to Scotland, we lost to Wales, and we lost to Ireland. However, we went out and tried and win games. We played an expansive rugby. I think as a whole, most people would take that, and most people would be like, we're trying to win games. We're going and grabbing the ball by the horns, rather than we're going to kick the ball away and defend for 75 minutes of the game. So it's been quite a frustrating Six Nations. All credits due to Wales, Scotland, and Ireland. I think they come on leaps and bounds, since the autumn. It's been a reality check for England. I think Eddie Jones is probably going to do some inward looking. Hopefully, I know he's notoriously stubborn, but hopefully this is the catalyst where he says, hold on a minute, maybe it's time to evolve how I coach, because rugby is an ever-evolving game.
Hallie, you must have been happy overall with Scotland's finish, were you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Scotland obviously won the Grand Slam. As we all know, it all goes down to the final match of the whole season. And yeah, I mean, it's typically Scotland, but this season, not even this championship, but certainly the last 6 months, Scotland has had a lot of monkeys taken off their back. I mean, we went down to Wales and won in Wales. We went down to England and won in England. We went down to France and won in France. These are massive scalps. I know for you guys who are genuinely quite used to kind of beating each other and all that sort of stuff, for Scotland, put it this way, the Scotland-England match, the win in Twickenham, I hadn't seen that in my entire lifetime. That shows how much of a massive season this has been for Scotland. I think one of the biggest, apart from our results, ill discipline, line out misfunctionings, but all these things you can work on in the training ground. For me, possibly one of the most pleasing aspects for Scottish rugby is the depth that we have managed to find. That has always been one of our problems in the past. We go up against the team, we'd miss 2 or 3 players, and it's like, shit, what do we do now? One of our talismans get injured, Finn Russell gets suspended, or falls out with Townsend, and we're like, damn it, what's going to happen now? But we went into the Six Nations this season with our 3rd, 4th choice hookers. Last week we had players that were injured, and against France this Friday, we had a number of players who were not, who weren't available because of the whole getting released from the teams. Sean Maitland, arguably a starter, he's been a starter for a few games this season already. So to sum it up, I mean, yeah, Scotland finished in 4th place, but as you say, how many points came between the top 4? It's been an incredible championship. Scotland will definitely look to push on. And hopefully, now that we've got some of these things off our...
We seem to lost Aldi there, but I'll jump in there, Grant, for a second, unless Grant kicked him out for saying that Scotland won the Grand Slam. But Grant, a quick question there for you. Looking where Wales were coming into the tournament, and I know you lost I know that the Grand Slam was lost. Hiya, Aldi, welcome back.
I got so excited there, I just had to throw something. But yeah.
But Grant, looking at that game versus France, if you could rewind time to before the Six Nations and you said, okay, Wales are going to win the championship, we won't win the Six Nations, like you would have bitten someone's hand off for that, I imagine, looking at where Wales were coming into the tournament and how you finished up.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of trepidation amongst a lot of Welsh fans before the championship, just thinking how badly could this go? Which, based on the autumn, you felt it could have gone not so great. But pre-championship, or I did a podcast pre-championship, so I've got this official. I did say pre-championship the Wales would win the championship based on our squad, and I felt that genuinely. I felt they'd gone through such a terrible time. And with the squad, when I first saw the squad for the very first game, I thought this is a championship winning team. I think having Liam Williams back in, knowing that Jonathan Davis was coming back in within the first couple of games, looking at the strength of the front row, Wyn Jordan has been outstanding at regional rugby, as is Ken Owens, as is Thomas Francis. So when I saw those guys, the bedrock of the team, I thought, there's a decent chance. Yeah. Am I happy with Six Nations over Grand Slam? Pretty ecstatic, to be honest. Just after all the disappointment and seeing those boys really come through and how close that Grand Slam was. I mean, that final couple of minutes, as I've talked about very recently, I think there was an inevitability about the way that France were able to play the game, and I think we've got to celebrate a lot of what France did throughout the championship. They definitely had some low moments. But some of the rugby they played, I thought was absolutely outstanding. So gutted at the time that France won it, but actually quietly pleased that they've come through and now we're a genuine contender again, which was Six Nations needed, I think.
John, looking at England and just at the team overall, and I know that probably the performances weren't what you wanted, but were there any players that stood out for you?
I think first and foremost, I have to give credit to Anthony Watson. I think he has been excellent. He's been one of our shining lights this Six Nations. I think it shows how dangerous and deadly he has been when we do actually get the ball in space and when he is put into in open field and broken play. So I have to, given how badly England have been, he's been one of the shining lights for me in that England team. I feel in that squad, I feel like the younger lads have been done a little bit of disservice. I would have loved to see Ollie Lawrence really getting the chance to shine. I think he was a bit of a victim through none of his own fault, just the style of play. I'm a big fan of his, and I think he's got a really, really bright future in terms of test caps and back at Worcester Warriors where he's at. So I think he can take a lot of pride in just being involved in that setup. For me, it's hard. It's been hard to say if there's any real standout players, especially with Lions coming around. you think these are the times our big name players would step up. I think Billy Villapolo did find some form towards the back end of the Six Nations. I think he's been able to just get some momentum going again compared to how he started. And Tom Curry finally will probably be the four. I can say that they've definitely been one of my more favourite players to watch in the England shirt in quite lackluster Six Nations for the majority of the squad, if we're going to be honest.
That's it, John. Well, cheers for tuning in, guys. If you're watching, just make sure that you're subscribed to the Rugby Pass YouTube channel. We've got some comments coming in, guys. Thanks, keep them coming in. And from Patrick O'Neill, as an Ireland fan, it's tempting to say after beating England, all's well. But looking back, I think France and Wales were there for the taking, and we missed out on a Grand Slam. Thoughts? Well, we could probably go in there all day. I think there's a few games that have been so close and tight that it could have gone absolutely any way, maybe even down to a ref's decision. River Wolf, no point in Ireland talking about Grand Slams. They are never consistent enough. Jeff, I will get a 1 minute's answer from you on this quick one, because that is something that Ireland have failed to maybe sometimes do, is take some of the form that they've made and progress to take into the World Cup at times, although sometimes that could be quite an unfair comment. What do you say to these guys coming in with their comments just now?
Well, the first one, in regards to France and Wales were there for the taking, I think, and I'm not blaming the red card. It was a red card, but I think if we didn't get a red card against Wales, probably a different outcome. It was such a tight game. France, look, I mean, ifs and buts against France at the end of the day all the time, we didn't create anything against France, so you can't really argue there. I don't think France were there for the taking just because of our own attack, but I do feel maybe with the Welsh game, it could have been a different outcome if everyone stayed on the pitch. In terms of consistency, to say Ireland's never consistent enough, I think is very harsh. And I know it's all about the present day and it's all about winning now, but you go back to, 17, 18, 19, like we were, back-to-back champions, I'm pretty sure. We had a Grand Slam in there, beat New Zealand, summer tour in Australia. I think to say that Ireland isn't consistent enough is very harsh. And, even with this tournament, I think if you want to talk about consistency, you have to look at Hugo Keenan. He played every minute of the Six Nations for Ireland. And I think I said it in the last game against England, that he played like a 60 cap test fullback, and he did. And I think you can tell that a fullback is being incredible because no one's paying attention to him. I think if a fullback is just doing his or her job, and nobody's actually mentioning a fullback, it means a fullback is just being incredible. And I know that Grant, you've a video on Doolan at the moment, and if you look at a lot of the work he does, it's kind of just almost expected of him. It's expected of a fullback just to be in the right places. And even with little things like when a kick is bombed down to him and the 15 just takes it, and the commentator says, and that's safe in Doolan's hands, or that's safe in Keenan's hands. That's just run-of-the-mill play. So in terms of that consistency that Ireland don't have as a team, I think that's unfair to say. I think, they went through a rough patch there for a couple of seasons, or for a couple of games, I should say. But, I mean, when it clicks and when they get on form, I mean, you can say that Ireland aren't consistent. It's just trying to be consistent at the right time and trying to peak at the right time.
Yeah, well, that's it. Hugh O'Neill, thank you very much for watching and tuning in with your comment. Grant, what do you think about this one? With Italy finished bottom with 5 losses, no bonus points, and minus 184 points difference. I think that's a record. What they conceded over 40 points a game, sort of thing. Is it time to start thinking about a 5 nations again? Or have a playoff between Georgia and England?
I saw that comment. I had a little chuckle when I saw that, because
sorry, I did.
That's very good. That's very good. I've enjoyed that.
Yeah, well in.
Absolutely nailed that. In terms of kind of playoffs between other teams that come into it, for me, no, because I think all the nearest teams, Georgia, Romania, Russia, they're just not close enough. Italy clearly are a long way off the standard at the minute. And let's be fair, they've been off the standard throughout their time. With a couple of wins, and they had a couple of painful ones against Wales actually. But there's a lot of comments that they're making progress, so that they're getting better, and this young team's lost some promise. I just don't buy it. I think it's I would describe it as
on that. Say just to raise a caveat there. For me, when I've seen the Italians, I think they have the moments of brilliance. I think they are much better than Georgia. People keep saying, "Oh, let's have a playoff." Like if you compare them to Georgia, four out of every 5 years they'll whack their asses, and if Georgia won one game, they'll come up and they'll just be the whipping boys of the Six Nations. But in terms of Italy, I think if you actually break down their team, they have the players and the foundations to actually be a competitive side. If you look at their back row, they've got the likes of Jake Pededru, who plays at Gloucester, Seb Negri that plays at Bennington, got Ioane on the wing, Stephen Varney, who's at Gloucester, if I'm correct. They're Tomasa Allen as well. They have the foundation. The young guys are there, but time and time again, it's the tactical side of the game that always lets them down. If you look at the England game, is their kicking choice. They keep kicking back to Anthony Watson. So for me, they probably need just that tactical awareness and tactical nuances that Scotland, Wales, England, Ireland have that they just don't have. So for me, if they can just get 3 or 4 years, get a good strong core behind them with like a good tactical like nuance behind them and like good tactical decision making, I think they would be a bit more competitive. I don't think it's a lack of talent. I just think it's literally the one percenters that they keep letting them down.
Yeah, I disagree with that wholeheartedly. Actually, I think I wouldn't. Their players, most of those players, would not get into the other teams. So I think it's probably slightly more than 1% personally. But just pick up on Rodri Jenkins's comment. So would a 2-tier competition work with the Pacific Islands? I do think a two-tier. You could argue there's already a 2-tier competition with the Rugby Europe Championship. But I do think there's more scope for teams like Japan, Samoa, Fiji. I mean, and there's scope for that. But we're leaning towards a World League, which, as the years go by, there's more and more pressure of that coming on, and Italy are probably putting some pressure on to take rugby that way. So yeah, it'd be interesting how the Six Nations survives. I can't see it longer term staying in its current format. It will have to adapt. 5 competitive teams with 1 non-competitive, within a massive gulf below. You probably could be looking at bringing other teams in.
And it is a bit difficult with Six Nations. Obviously, all the nations actually have a stake in the tournament as well. So it goes beyond the rugby park. It goes into the boardroom sort of thing too. River Wolf, thanks for watching. Ireland have lost to England 4 times before this recent win, and you call them consistent. Cronies, France is the best team right now, and Scotland beat France. So therefore, Scotland are the best team right now. And Rodri Jenkins, should a Dogwoo play for Italy for more game time? I don't know why a Dogwoo doesn't play. We had a comment earlier on from Rodri Jenkins saying Eddie has his team sheet photocopied ready for the next 3 years. So hey, what do we do? Right, guys, 1-word answer. You do not need to describe it or go into any details. 1-word answer, or maybe 2 words. Your player of the tournament. I mean, it's been an incredible tournament. We've seen just oodles of scores. We've seen oodles of controversy. We've seen cards. We've seen everything. As a whole, we're not even talking like the top try scorer or your champagne player or whatever like that. Who has just been the ultimate player for you, the whole Six Nations, out of all the teams? Grant, we'll start with you.
This is a big one. I'm going down bigger.
Interesting. John?
Hamish Watson.
Yes, I agree almost.
Robbie Henshaw.
Interesting. That's good. That's lots of things. I will obviously have to go for somebody. Stuart Hogg. I'm going to just stop there because I'm going to stick with my own things about not slaving too much about it. But Stuart Hogg. We've had a couple of comments coming in. Rodri Jenkins Byrne, player of the tournament for me. That's a very good shout as well. Right, guys. John, just before we move on, I'm noticing you're wearing some very sexual tops. Out of fashion. Talks.
Right there.
Just jump on,
The
guys.
goods.
Jump onto the Rugby Pass and get yourself so you can look as good as John does, because we're about to go out and enjoy nights out in the town once again soon. Right, guys, we've got about 5 minutes left of the show. So again, thank you everybody for watching. If you are watching, you haven't subscribed yet to Rugby Pass, please do. And thank you for all the support in the fan zone. Right, guys, we're going to be moving towards 5 minutes talk about the Lions. And again, I'm going to go around each of you and say who's maybe put their hand up and who's going to make the plane and who's just going to miss out on the plane. Jeff, let's go to you first, my
man. Making the plane, I think there's a good bunch of Irish that could. You have Tyke Byrne. I think Ian Henderson has done himself the world of good this competition. I felt he was fantastic. James Ryan. I think Hugo Keenan, like he's a lot of competition at 15, and I know that, but he had a fantastic, like he had an unbelievable tournament. I felt he was brilliant. I think Johnny Sexton, Dan Bigger will be two of the 10s going. Sexton just showed he still has it, and Bigger just did everything Dan Bigger does really well. I think if he's available, I think, and if he's selected, obviously, I think CJ goes just because of the platform that he offers Ireland. In terms of Scotland, I think Hamish Watson, in terms of Ireland as well, Keith Earls had a fantastic tournament. But moving on, I'm being a bit one-eyed, I suppose, here. Hamish Watson, it was mentioned there, player of the tournament for them, but every Scotland game, Twitter lit up with Hamish Watson and a little line figure beside his face. And in terms of making a test team, I'm not saying he would, I'm not saying he wouldn't, but how good is it to have a guy like Hamish Watson who can play every 4 days and just do the dirty work and just hump lads in and around the pitch all day, every day for you. In terms of England, then I think Farrell will go, just because it depends if Gatlin wants a 10-12 or whatever he wants, but I do think Farrell is world class. Etoja is obviously going as well. You can see him in the background of that picture, and there was a game there earlier in the competition where he was giving away so many penalties, and people were like, "Oh, what's he playing for?" And then he scores the winner the following week, and that's, I think a player with maybe I don't want to say a worse mindset, but maybe with not as strong a mindset would think, "Oh, I was in trouble so much last week, I better stick back," and just kind of go with the flow. Etoja changed nothing and scores the winner, so to have that kind of mentality on a Lions tour, and he's he's won with the Lions before. He won in Wellington that second test against New Zealand too. So having that, obviously Henshaw will go as well. I think he'd be one of the first names down. Who he partnerships in the centre, I don't know, but no, I think so many guys have put their hands up. Maybe a few who will have or haven't done themselves justice, I suppose, but I won't drop on them because they work for their craft far harder than I do, so I'm not going to call them out. But I do feel that an awful lot of guys have put their hand up this competition. All right,
John, who's sat on the front of the plane next to Warren Gatlin talking about the hits, and who's left in the lounge drowning their sorrows on a horrible airport pint. One player who's made it, one player who's not.
One player's made it. If we're going to keep it with our home nations, Anthony Watson, he's gone. I think the Six Nations, he's been England's standout player. I think he's gone before. He has the experience. There's a lot of chat. Is he going to go as a fullback? Is he going to go on the wing? There's a lot of competition on the wing. Like we've got Zamet, Van der Merwe. So there's a lot of competition on the wing, but he will definitely go. He has the experience. He's been England's standout player. Keeping it within England, I think, I'm not going to say he has missed out on the plane, but his domestic season is probably going to be what will be telling if he does or go or not go. Will probably be Elliot Daly. I don't think he had the best Six Nations. Like Jeff said, I'm not going to call him out and say he's had an awful Six Nations. He ain't going because he's had, he's a test player. He's gone before, so he's far more advanced than I can speak in that level. So I'm not going to call him out in that respect. But his domestic form towards the back end of the season is probably going to be what determines if he does go or not go for me.
Grant, final question of this season's Fan Zone with Rugby Pass. Who is going to be leading the Lions when they go down?
Yeah, there's only one taker for that one, I think. And obviously, I'm very biased, and I can't remove that bias. But I honestly think Alun Jones is the absolute shoe-in as captain. And there's other guys in there. Obviously, I told you I was talking to it really early on, and that chat seems to have disappeared. But for me, I think he's out and out the best leader for the job. It's going to be a tough battle against the South Africans. For me, Alun Jones gets the nod.
I think it's hard, to be fair, to argue with that. Hey, guys, it has been an absolute pleasure spending the last 6 or so weeks with you guys. And we'll give you the final words. It's going to be our final send-off. Remember, folks, if you have enjoyed the Fan Zone with the Rugby Pass, make sure to keep tuning in, because we will be back. We've got some hell of a lot of good rugby coming up. And obviously that Lions, the test that's coming up this summer, are going to be unbelievable. We're going to be taking on the world champions, so it doesn't get much better than that. And hopefully we'll be putting that guy in his place. Jeff, your final send-off, please, because obviously you're going to still be busy. This isn't the end for us. We've still got our own stuff going on. Jeff, you'll still be busy on the old social medias.
Yeah, so coming up next now is a podcast, the 4th series of Let's Talk Coaching. So far spoke to Dan McKellar, George Murray, Nick Evans, chatting to Lynn Campbell now this week. She's high performance director for Springbok Women, and Wasali Sarevi then, the King of Sevens as well. So I'm looking forward to getting that series out now in the next couple of weeks and getting it going. There was a lot of love for the first 3 of the coaching series, so hopefully this one kind of follows suit.
Nice one, Jeff. John, yourself, you're so busy living the uni life.
Yeah, head down to my channel at John Okafor straight after this. Like I've always said, it's just more rugby vlogs, training. Obviously, rugby's back this week, so we're back to training. So I'll bring you all the behind the scenes access of a 22-year-old uni rugby player, just working at his craft.
And obviously, you'll be watching into what Grant does on his own social medias.
Oh yeah, of course. I'll be taking my notes.
It's very important, very important. So check out my YouTube channel, Geraint Davies Coach Analysis. New video on Bryce Dillon was put up yesterday, and that covers more than just him as a player. It covers the role of fullback in the modern game. So it's quite a long analysis, 9 minutes, and it covers all the different aspects of the game. And all the way through the next few weeks, I'll be covering all the positions. So I'll pick out individuals from different countries and different clubs and cover the positions on the field and all the roles and responsibilities that they have in the elite game. So do make sure you get on there and check it out.
Nice one, guys. Quality stuff there, guys. So anybody watching, please follow that. And obviously, you can follow myself, Haldy Pottinger, at Haldy Pottinger, on Instagram or TikTok. I've been sucked into the world of TikTok and making a complete arse of myself there, talking all things rugby and life in general. So, guys, that's it. Do you know what? I'm going to miss you guys. I'm going to miss waking up and seeing your beautiful faces beaming back at me as we shoot the breeze about rugby. But it's been an absolute pleasure, guys. And it leaves nothing more for me to say. But again, everybody who's watched us and joined this adventure throughout the Six Nations season, we are not done. It has just begun. But for me, Haldy, from Jeff, from John, from Grant, we love you lots, and we'll see you soon.